On today's episode on the Health Spot with Omar podcast, when it comes to getting healthy, Dr. Tom O'Brien's goal for you is making it easy to do the right thing. As an internationally recognized, admired, and compassionate speaker focusing on food sensitivities, environmental toxins, and the development of autoimmune diseases, Dr. O'Brien's audiences discover that it is through a clear understanding of how you got to where you are, so that you and your doctor can figure out what it will take to get you well. Dr. O'Brien is considered a Sherlock Holmes for chronic disease and teaches that recognizing and addressing the underlying mechanisms that activate an immune response is the map to the highway towards better health. He holds teaching faculty positions with the Institute for Functional Medicine and the National University of Health Sciences. He has trained and certified tens of thousands of practitioners around the world in advanced understanding of the impact of wheat sensitivity and the development of individual autoimmune diseases. His groundbreaking book, winner of the National Book Award, The Autoimmune Fix, outlines the step-by-step development of degenerative diseases and gives the tools to identify our disease process.
It's always inflammation, except for unintentional injuries and accident. Everything else is inflammation.
Those people who have babies and they're probably thinking, well, I've had my baby and baby turned out fine. What do you say to those people? Let's sort it. And we've got the legend himself right here in person. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, good. So what's happening in Italy then? You got a conference going on there or?
No, we moved here.
No way.
A few months ago. There's a Waldorf school here in the mountains in a small village for our son. And somewhere around 50 to 60 couples have come here from all over the world to create a community focused on the education for children. So we have lots of organic produce available, organic meats, and consciousness-raising kind of people. We don't live together. Everybody lives in their own homes wherever they find housing. But it's a beautiful area, and the school is fabulous. Kids are thriving in the school.
Amazing. I'm aware about the Waldorf schools. For those who don't know what Waldorf schools are all about, if you could just give a brief explanation, if there's anything else that you want to add to what you've just said.
Oh, thank you. I really don't know that much about Waldorf schools. I studied Rudolf Steiner, the founder, 50 years ago when he was talking about copper wiring and pyramids. And I was an undergrad in my education in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was a hippie back then, and my hair was down to my waist.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, probably still am today. But it's about maintaining balance with nature and the universe around you. And that's balance in your food selections, food preparation, relationships, engage with nature. This school has kids outside every day, rain or shine. And so everybody has a rain suit at school that's just left there. So if it's raining that day and they're going outside, you put on your rain suit, and your boots. So the kids are learning about connecting with nature on a daily basis, so it becomes second nature for them.
Which is totally opposite to modern day schooling, isn't it? Because I did a podcast with someone who homeschools his children. We talked about what is the difference. And when I look at the way the school system is for my kids, and even I'm thinking about, wow, like even for myself, when I was in school, why am I learning things that don't actually really matter?
Yeah, that seems to be the case. I don't know. I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough to say that history is irrelevant. I wouldn't ever say that, but what do our children need to learn and not learn about history? And I think probably, my impressions of the world from the way I was educated, I think there's some strengths in there, but I want the emphasis to be on children thinking for themselves, being able to look at a situation and come up with what feels right to them of how to respond to that situation. And the experiential aspect of Waldorf is courting children to develop their own sense of well-being and taking care of themselves and taking care of the world around them in a healthy way.
So, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate this. When I read this book of yours, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And about when I started my journey 10 years ago, my first mentor said to me, stay away from wheat products. I did it for a whole year. And then after a year, I started putting some wheat back in. And then it's like, I didn't know what was going on. I started getting asthma, pains in my joints. Things just weren't the same. And now that I'm a health coach, nutritionist, personal trainer, now when I work with my clients and ask them to do it, some of them say don't understand why they should do it, even when I explain it, because they just feel like they're missing out on something. That's one thing. And the second thing is when they do it, they're like, oh my gosh, why haven't I done this before? So it's interesting that this is something that you've mentioned in your book, The Autoimmune Fix. And it's something that you talk about on your social media pages. So before we get into that, I'd love for you to introduce to the listeners who you are.
All right. My name's Tom O'Brien, and I opened my practice in Chicago on Valentine's Day in 1980. So I've been around for a little while. And when I was an intern, before opening our practice, my ex and I could not get pregnant. And I called the 7 most famous holistic doctors I'd ever heard of and said, what do you do for infertility? And they all told me what they did. And I put a program together. We were pregnant in 6 weeks. We lived in married housing on campus, and my neighbors asked if I'd work with them because they'd been through artificial insemination and nothing had worked.
Which is IVF, right?
Yes. Yes. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't think it'll hurt you. Okay. And they were pregnant in 3 months. So now we're 4 months pregnant, just hot to trot to tell the world about this. And our friends in Chicago, their sister had 2 miscarriages and lived in Wisconsin. And she'd call and say, can I drive down to see you? Can I talk to you, please? Please, can you help me? And I didn't know what I was doing, but I said, oh, okay. So I started working with patients before I was out in practice, and you're not supposed to do that. These were couples that really didn't know anything about some basic principles of why they may be having difficulty in achieving a pregnancy. They didn't know any of this stuff. And so we came out into practice. I came out as a chiropractor doing musculoskeletal care, but functional medicine was a part of our practice on day one, talking about diet and nutrition. And we've helped hundreds and hundreds of families achieve pregnancy and then maintain a healthy pregnancy. And actually, my next book that I'm writing is based on, I'm remarried now, and we have a 4-year-old. It was a beautiful, beautiful pregnancy. My wife looked great if you look at her from behind at 7 months pregnant, you couldn't tell she was pregnant. Front, she had a big Buddha belly just sticking way out there, right? And we had 2 midwives, 2 doulas, a hypnotherapist, a water birth therapist, a psychic massage therapist to get rid of any bad karma. I mean, we had a gamut of people helping us to prepare for a beautiful home birth. And so when my wife's water broke, I'm the kind of geek, I'm a geek guy. I was ready, and I captured some of that liquid when her water broke and sent it to a lab, so I knew what the microbiome was like of the baby in utero.
Wow, that's a good point, actually. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. And but the birth was going quite well, and she was comfortable and listening to Mozart, and I had all the little lights on in the room, and the hypnotherapy that she'd practiced for 5 or 6 months really helped to just relax her and stay calm. And the doula said, well, this is going to be a while. But let's just check. And she was at 10 centimeters. This baby's coming now. And Marcy didn't have any pain at all. A little bit of cramping, but just breathing with it. And it turned out that we had problems in the pregnancy or in the delivery. And when Marcy said, I can't do this anymore, I said, okay, let's go. And we were packed and ready to go. We went to the hospital. We were prepared for this option if it had to happen. Had the bag packed for weeks ahead of time. And we get to the hospital, and we're rushed to the elevator and rush upstairs. She's in pain now. She's in a fair amount of pain. And we go into the maternity operating room. And there's a guy on the other side of the room in some torn up jeans, his knee showing a little bit, a pair of sneakers and a T-shirt. He walks into another room and he comes back in a white coat with a stethoscope around his neck. I said, oh, God. Oh, my God. He said, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm the obstetrician on call. Now, this was New Year's Eve.
Wow.
And you don't get the sharpest knife on the drawer who's on call on New Year's Eve. So now I was worried. I said, where's our OB-GYN? And he said, well, I don't know. He's not here right now, but we're here. We certainly can help. And I looked at the guy and I said, how many of these have you done? And he said, well, my team and I, about 2,000. 2,000. Yes, about 2,000. I said, okay. Then I just took a step back and realized that for whatever reason, this man is supposed to be here. And he's quite experienced. He knew what he was doing. And we had a very difficult birth with an emergency C-section. Our son was born not breathing and blue. And they revived him right away. And I never left his side. I didn't let them use silver nitrate in his eyes or anything. So we had prepared for this beautiful home birth. We had trauma. We came through the trauma fine. And because I had captured the amniotic fluid, I knew the environment that he was developing in. But as you may know, when babies are born by C-section, they don't have mom's vaginal inoculation of bacteria.
That's it.
And so baby gets the bacteria that's in the surgery room and on the skin. And those kids are much higher risk of attention deficit and asthma and many different conditions in life because they were born with a deficit. So I started rebuilding on my son's, focusing on his microbiome day one.
How did you do that?
Oh, there's many steps that I did for that. But I tell you all this story because now he's almost 4 and he's this beautiful boy. He had a 101 fever once when he was 2. He's never been sick. And he's vibrant, dynamic, loves the world, loves people, always wants to help people. And I'm beginning my new book now, which the working title is Healthy Conception, Healthy Pregnancy, Healthy Delivery, Happy Baby. So every step of that process is critical. Conception. I'll give you an example. The Journal of the American Medical Association published a study in 2019 from Harvard that should have been on the front page of every paper in the country, but it wasn't. But the editors of the journal said this is an elegant study using sophisticated biomarkers to prove their point. Now, the editors of the Journal of the American Medical Association don't say that very often. They don't give a stamp of approval like that. So I knew this was an important study. And they looked at women going to assisted fertility centers for IVF treatment. And they ruled out all of the known complications that would prevent successful implantation. They ruled out alcohol and cigarettes and exercise, no exercise, socioeconomic class, race. They ruled all that out. And they looked at one thing in an elegant way. How many servings of fruits and vegetables is the woman eating a day while she's in the implantation process? Well, we all know the answer to that. The more, the better. But actually, that was not the case. It was jaw-dropping. They put the women in 4 categories, those eating the least amount of fruits and vegetables a day, the next category, a little bit more, the third category, and then those eating the most. Those eating the highest number of servings of fruits and vegetables a day compared to those eating the lowest amount of fruits and vegetables a day, those in the highest category had an 18% less likelihood of successful implantation. Wait, what? The more fruits and vegetables you eat, the worse the outcome? Yes. And if they did get pregnant, they had a 26% less likelihood of a live birth. Wait, what? More miscarriages and stillbirths if you eat fruits and vegetables? Yes. Wait, what?
So how did they come up with that conclusion then?
It's like mind-boggling. But the editors of the journal had said this is an elegant study using sophisticated biomarkers. You can't argue with the science here. Now, there was a group of women in this cohort who were eating organic. And in that category, the results were the exact opposite. The more fruits and vegetables you eat, the better the outcome. But it's the conventional fruits and vegetables full of pesticides, insecticides, rodenticides, fungicides, glyphosates. For those women who have already accumulated so many toxins in their body unknowingly, but their stores of all these toxins are very high and they're highly inflamed, they can't get pregnant very easily because they're so inflamed. And when they eat fruits and vegetables, conventional fruits and vegetables, they get more toxins, so they get more inflammation, so they have less chance of successful implantation. It's the amount of toxins stored in the bodies of people of childbearing age that is a tremendous contributor to the infertility epidemic we're seeing right now. I'll give you another example. A paper came out about 10 months ago that showed in men at infertility centers, glyphosate levels in the semen were 4 times higher than glyphosate levels in the bloodstream. That these chemicals accumulate in reproductive tissue. And you guys are just walking bomb fires internally, but you think you're fine. But the result is, and the most now this is my opinion. What I'm about to tell you is my opinion. My opinion is the most sensitive tissue in the human body is a fertilized egg. It has no protection whatsoever. It's completely dependent on mom's environment. And if mom is highly inflamed with these chemicals that accumulate in the reproductive system, she's not going to get pregnant very easily. It's just not going to happen. And you're spending tens of thousands of dollars and all the emotional stress for this beautiful result you want of having a family, which is beautiful, but you need to clean up your own house. Women and men of childbearing age need to detox for 6 months to a year before they ever try to get pregnant. You guys need to read some of this science so that you understand, and this is not some fringe thing, this is everyday life. Now, there was one more aspect of that study in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Women eating organic, complete opposite, much better results. And women qualified to be in the organic category if they were eating organic 3 times a week, not 3 times a day. Now, that makes no sense whatsoever. And the authors didn't address that fact. Why only 3 times a week? Twice a week? No, the results were not better. 3 times a week? Yep, fell right into that category of much better results. Why? I think it's because if you're trying to eat organic, you eat organic 3 times a week, you probably got organic shampoo in your shower, organic soap at the sink, organic dishwashing detergent, organic laundry detergent.
And most of those things are like 80% organic as well, I've noticed. Like in the UK, I've seen some of those products. Not all of it's organic, but you only need a certain percentage to get that certification.
Yeah. You're doing your best. Now, if you want to get pregnant, you're having a hard time, you be fanatical for a while. You be fanatical. But here in our home, we're not fanatical. All of our food in the house is organic, the vegetables, the fruits, the canned things, the nuts and all that that is, but we still go out to a nice restaurant, for dinner with our son, and it's not organic. If there's an organic restaurant, we'll go there, but most of the restaurants that we go to are not organic. So you're not fanatical. The vast majority of time, when you can, you clean up your act. You need to learn about this because everybody's got friends who can't get pregnant right now. And it's getting worse with the that people got. It's getting worse.
Tell me about it, Doc, because I've got 2 people I know who have had, in combination, 3 miscarriages over the past year. The miscarriages has been happening a lot this past year. I'd say
it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. I love working with young couples. I work with like one person a week, one person every 10 days or so. I don't have time because I travel the world teaching, but I love to keep my hands in there a little bit, so I'll do a Zoom call with somebody, but I won't even talk to them until they've done certain tests because I know the tests have to be done.
What kind of tests do you recommend?
Well, one of them is sensitivity to wheat and leaky gut. Another is the amount of total toxins you've accumulated, mold, organophosphate, heavy metals. We need to know this basic information to figure out. See, here's the way that you have to think about this. The Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death in the world today are chronic inflammatory diseases. It's always inflammation, except for unintentional injuries, an accident. Everything else is inflammation. Infertility, it's inflammation. Miscarriages, it's inflammation. MS, inflammation. Rheumatoid, inflammation. Seizures, inflammation. Depression, inflammation. Schizophrenia, everything.
Why is infertility part of the inflammation problem?
Well, what I just told you, as an example, that if a woman has accumulated so many toxic chemicals in her reproductive tract, the immune system trying to protect you is attacking these chemicals. And the only way your immune system can protect you is to produce inflammation. Inflammation is not bad for you. It saves your life. Excess inflammation is bad for you. And people don't understand this. Every single person should watch the docu-series that we did, that we launched a few months ago. It's called The Inflammation Equation. TheInflammationEquation.com. It's all free. And when you just watch the first episode. And if it doesn't grab you, then all right, so you allocated 20 minutes, you watch this, okay. But everyone I've ever talked to say, oh my God, this just makes sense. And when you understand that it's always inflammation, and I give you the equation of what do you do? How do you find out if you're inflamed? How do you find out how you're throwing gasoline on the fire? We talk about it. There's 9 episodes. They're all about 45 minutes long. And there's a worksheet, a workbook every day, and it's all free. And you just ask these questions. And you say, boy, that really makes sense. Well, I've got Epstein-Barr. It's a viral thing. No, Epstein-Barr should be taken care of in 3 weeks. If it's not taken care of in 3 weeks, there's something else going on. There's something else. Lyme disease, the science is really clear. It should be gone in 3 weeks of treatment. If it's not, then you have to look somewhere else. And the most common place is that when you have a mold infection, the antibodies to mold that your immune system is producing, trying to protect you, will also create antibodies to the bugs of Lyme disease. It's called a molecular mimicry. And so the test says you got Lyme disease, but you really don't. What you've got is mold that's mimicking in the immune system, and you've got the markers for Lyme disease, but you don't have Lyme disease. Get rid of the mold, and the Lyme disease symptoms are gone.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It really is. Wake up.
Yeah.
Younger generation needs to wake up, and the inflammation equation is great so that you now know what kind of questions to ask. See, everybody thinks, well, give me a pill. What pill do I take? I don't have time for this. Tell me what pill to take. Well, that's never going to work. There is no pill to fix this. You have to look at the lifestyle that's contributing to the inflammation. Now, if you've had a couple of in this last couple of years, there's some pills that you need to take to protect you from the microclots that people are producing now as a result of these toxins. There are some pills to take, but in general, it's lifestyle that you have to look at.
But with the situation, from what I understand, it's just replicating itself all the time, right? So how is someone meant to detox from something that is just having to have a factory within them just keep making these proteins?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't know the answer to that. So at this point, it's defense. How do you break down protein that your body's producing? How do you break it down? And well, I'll tell you, there's a product called Cardiotone, Cardiotone, Cardiotone. And it's just remarkable. It dissolves these fibrous clots and these microclots like nothing before. And the studies are very clear that much more effective than clot dissolving pharmaceuticals. All of the pharmaceuticals, blood thinners that people take, they work on one pathway. Well, nattokinase works on 5 pathways, including the one that the pharmaceuticals work on. And it's much more effective. And there's a particular type of nattokinase that's very, very effective at this. And our patients with long COVID and symptoms that keep dragging on or recurrent miscarriages, they're fine. Amazing. They're fine as long as they take it. And they say, how long do I have to take it? And the answer is, I don't know. I'm taking it every day. I didn't get any. I'm taking it every day because I did test positive for COVID. I caught the flu a year and a half ago, and I didn't feel well for 2 or 3 days. And I don't know what's going on in my body now, but I'm not taking any chances. So I just take Cardiotone every day.
Amazing, amazing. Just taking a step back, because we were talking about healthy babies. I don't know if you saw the message I sent in my email. One of my previous guests went to one of your conferences, and she said in our talk, she said, oh, it was a slap in the face when Dr. O'Brien said a healthy baby is not a given. So for those people who have babies and they're probably thinking, well, I've had my baby and baby turned out fine. What do you say to those people?
You heard the science on the number of children on antidepressants, the number of children on anti-anxieties, that
Yes.
autism is going through the roof.
ADHD, ADD,
Exactly.
autism.
Exactly.
All these things statistically are showing that kids are getting sicker and they're not getting any
More
smaller.
more kids are getting sick. More kids are on medications at younger and younger ages, which makes the pharmaceutical companies very happy. And they say, oh, it's so bad, but I'm glad we've got some answers for you. Well, that is honorable of them to say, but it's part of their operating program. Unfortunately, Casey Means, Means, she and her brother just wrote a book, and I don't remember the name of the book, but you'll find it. She's a Stanford-trained ear, nose, and throat surgeon, and he is an MBA from Harvard who worked for the pharmaceutical industry. And they have written a book recently about, here's the facts about the healthcare system. And when you read this, it just drops your jaw. It's like, wait, what? And then, but you look at all the science and it's accurate. It's all accurate. The most profitable patient for a pharmaceutical industry is a sick child, because you've got them for life and they're always going to buy the medication. It's just terrible. These are terrible concepts, but that's the way the business is set up. Okay, here's the quote that I was trying to find. The first 38 weeks of human life spent in the allegedly protected environment of the amniotic sac are medically more eventful and more fraught with danger than the next 38 years in the lifespan of most human individuals. You say, wait, what? What? I mean, but it's very thought-provoking. That's in the Journal of Perinatal Medicine.
Wow.
And because mom is so toxic, mom is so accumulated with toxins. Here's an example when you think your child is fine. Chicago, 2016, 346 pregnant women in the 8th month of pregnancy. They did urine analysis, and they looked to see how many phthalates are in the urine. Phthalates are chemicals used to mold plastic, like BPA. And they just looked at 5 phthalates, and they divided those women into fourths, those with the lowest amount of phthalates, the next, the third, and the highest amount of phthalates. Then they followed the offspring of those pregnancies, and when the children turned 7 years old, they did Wechsler IQ tests on them, the official IQ test. Not much in medicine is all or every. This was every. Every child whose mother was in the highest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy compared to the children in the lowest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, every child in the highest category, their IQ was 7 points lower than the kids whose moms were in the lowest category of phthalates in urine. 7 points. 6.7 to 7.4 points lower. It doesn't mean anything to anybody until you understand a 1-point difference in IQ is noticeable. A 7-point difference is a difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's in school, and a child working really hard, really working, getting straight C's. That child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever excelling. Now just go to Google and type in phthalates and neurogenesis. Here come the studies, how the more phthalates in the body inhibits the growth and development of brain cells and nervous system cells. What are phthalates? Nail polish. You put nail polish on, and the phthalates that make the nail polish hard, they're in your bloodstream in 3 to 4 minutes. Well, there's no evidence that the amount of phthalates that leach into your bloodstream from nail polish is toxic to humans. That's true. There is no evidence whatsoever that the minute amount of phthalates that get into your bloodstream from applying nail polish are toxic. There's no evidence. And that's how the industry got away with this, because they had legislation passed that you have to prove that those toxins are poisonous to the human body. They're not, but they accumulate. So give me a 5-year-old girl that's painting her 10 little fingers and 10 little toes, and she does it now for 20 years or 25 years, and she doesn't detox well, and she's dehydrated from not drinking enough water. Now she's 25, 30 years old, and she gets pregnant, and hopefully she has a healthy pregnancy and a healthy delivery. But she was high in phthalates because she drinks pop out of plastic bottles. She does nail polish. She eats leftover food from plastic containers, all of the places that we get plastic. Her baby is born. The baby looks okay. At 7 years old, the IQ of that baby is 7 points lower. Don't tell me your child is fine. You don't have the skill to be able to determine optimal growth and development unless you're researching and learning how do you create optimal growth and development. And as you learn these kinds of things by listening to podcasts like this and all the different experts you hear, and once you learn some of this stuff, like the anogenital distance, the distance from the bottom of the scrotum to the opening of the anus, that distance is much shorter in boys who are born whose moms were full of chemicals. And those are the ones, when they grow up as teenagers and young men, their sperm counts are low, their testosterone counts are low, because their reproductive system never developed to its full potential. But they're fine. Oh, my son's fine. He's 20 and he's fine. Yeah, but he's got a shortened anogenital gap. Well, but he's fine. Yeah, but his sperm count is 1/3 of what his grandfather's sperm count was at the same age. You don't see these subtle things that are accumulating in all of us when you, without hesitancy, allow all of these chemicals into your home environment, into your food, into your water, into your air. You think these chemtrails are harmless? Really? Really? Wake up. I mean, some things we have no control over, some things we do.
Yeah, definitely. What do you say to people? So let me give you an example. So I did a podcast with Dr. Jenny Goodman, and she did a test with children in my area where I live. That's what it caught my eye. She removed the fluoride from these children, and she found out that it improved their IQ. Now, I mentioned that to a friend, and he just burst out laughing. He was like, "You're telling me tap water is going to affect my IQ? You must be joking." So I wanted to ask the question.
Well, excuse me. Your friend is an idiot. Your friend is not open enough to say something like, well, I've never heard of that before. I'm wondering how true that is. But there's no opening. So when people get defensive and they have no opening, don't waste your time. Those that want to learn and say, well, I've never heard of that. Could that be true? Really? They'd allow fluoride in that might affect the IQ? There are so many studies. Just Google fluoride and IQ.
Yep. So
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I love it. And it's interesting because I had another friend who said they had a bad night. They couldn't sleep. So I said, have you turned off the Wi-Fi? He was like, no, turn off the Wi-Fi. And he's the kind of person that's quite 50-50 about this kind of stuff. So I just presumed that he didn't do it. And 4 weeks went by and I saw him again. I was like, oh, out of curiosity, did it work? And he was like, yeah, I slept like a baby. So it's interesting. And the reason why I asked you about the fluoride thing and the Wi-Fi thing, the response I get is like, well, this child, his family are geniuses or really good academically. My children, they're not like that, so we don't expect much. My point of view is like, well, if you watch what they're eating, what they're surrounding themselves with, their environment, if you work on that, that would actually make their lives easier. You talked about phthalates earlier as well. So I'm linking it to that. So what do you think? Do you think some children are just naturally gifted to be academic? And then there's some of the kids who are just not academic? What do you think?
I saw my friend one day and he's my chiropractor, and I went in to see him and I got a treatment, and I said, you seem kind of down today. Is everything okay? And he said, my son was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I said, how old is he? And he said, 7. I said, congratulations. And he just looked at me. I said, congratulations. Well, why do you say that? Because he's 7. He's not 24 and getting the diagnosis. His body is still growing and developing for many years. You fix the problem now, and he'll be fine. Well, how do I do that? Well, we have to find out why he's developed this problem right now. And we did a battery of tests, and he was gluten sensitive and dairy sensitive, and he ate wheat and cheese every day. They took those out of his diet, and within 6 weeks, I think it was, he no longer needed insulin. And the doctor said, well, this happens sometimes. It's a honeymoon period. They call it the honeymoon period. And within a month, he'll just keep measuring his blood sugar because he'll need insulin. No, it's been over a year now. And he's fine. He's fine. When you remove the triggers of inflammation, your body has a blueprint. It's the plans. It's called your DNA. It's a blueprint for an optimal human on how to function. The problem is that we put so many governors, we put so many brakes on our blueprint in terms of building healthy cells that you build mediocre cells or you build less than optimal cells. You create the environment for optimal growth, you get optimal growth. And so I love patients like this, who are really wanting to be different, have different levels of health, and they're committed. Doc, I've been everywhere. I've done everything. Nothing works. It's great. Welcome. All right, let's see what we can do. And once we do the right test to identify where the triggers are of inflammation, and we get those triggers of inflammation out of there, I tell them all the same thing. It's, in 6 months, you're going to go to church and you're going to see someone you haven't seen. They're going to go, wow, what happened to you? You look great. What happened to you? Well, I got rid of the plastic storage containers in the kitchen, and I got organic nail polish. I don't eat wheat or gluten anymore, and I don't eat dairy. And I've got electromagnetic blankets on my bed to protect me because of the EMFs in the area, because there's a smart meter outside. I can't get it off of my house, but my husband's heart arrhythmias, which started when they put the smart meter on the house with the electric blanket, he doesn't have arrhythmias anymore. And so he's off all that medication, and your friend just goes, wait, what? And my second book is called You Can Fix Your Brain. Just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity, and sleep you've ever had. It was #1 in 7 categories on Amazon. Brain and nervous system function. I'm really proud of that. And that subtitle of the book, Just 1 hour a week, that is the key to success. I don't care what the disease is or what the condition is. It's 1 hour a week, because if you try to implement everything I've said here today, you're overwhelmed. You don't know what to do or where to go. So you tell your family, look, every Tuesday night after dinner or every Saturday afternoon, whenever it is, I'm going to take an hour to learn how we can be healthier as a family. Don't bother me. Then you go online and you look for glass storage containers. And in my book, I give you 3. There's mileskimball.com and Amazon and whatever the third one was. I don't remember. But you go look, oh, those are okay. Oh, I like those. And you order 3 round ones and 2 square ones and 1 for the pie. You pay with your credit card. You hit send. You're done for the week, because that took an hour. But never again will you poison your family with minute amounts of poison, phthalates, from the leftover food in plastic containers. Give the plastic containers to your husband to store nails in the garage. That's what they're good for, right? So you got glass storage. Next week, you go to the 3 URLs for organic nail polish, and you look for the ones you like, and you do that. Next week, you've learned that houseplants remove toxins from the air. 2 6-inch houseplants in a 10 by 10 room remove 74% of the toxins in the air. So you get houseplants in every room of your house. Next week, and you learn about something else. Next week, you learn about something else. 1 hour a week. And accumulatively in 6 months, you're ready to get pregnant. So for every couple that comes to me, I say, look, we just have to find out what your triggers are of inflammation and get them out of there. So simple. My first mentor was Dr. George Goodhart, the founder of applied kinesiology, the muscle testing that some doctors do. George used to say, the body is simply intricate and intricately simple. So you just do the simple things accumulatively to change the lifestyle that's produced the problem you've got right now. And what happens is your body starts functioning better.
Amazing. I'm glad you mentioned phthalates, because I had a discussion with my wife, I'd say 2 months ago. And my eldest daughter, she's going to be 7 in April. And my wife is saying, she might have to start her period soon. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, she might start her period soon. It's quite normal for it to start quite early. I was like, what?
No.
I said to her, it's not normal, it's common, but exactly. I'm gonna find out why it's happening. So I had a look, and phthalates and toxic chemicals from plastic was top of the list.
That's exactly right. And it shortens their reproductive years, shortens the quality of their life. I can't say it shortens their life, but it shortens the quality of their life. There's a difference between a healthy lifespan and a total lifespan. And my goal for people is to increase your healthy lifespan so it's much closer to all of the time that you're here on Earth. The current numbers, especially these numbers come from Great Britain. The average man lives to 78 something, but his healthy lifespan, the average is 62. For women, they live to 83, and the healthy lifespan is 62 or 63, which means the last 20 years of your life are with disability. That means you can't walk upstairs, you got pains, you're immobilized, or your brain's starting to go.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of family members say to me, "Oh, when you're old, or when we all get old, we're gonna have to get a bedroom downstairs." And I'm thinking, I don't want to be able to not walk and do the things, walk around. Like, there's a reason why I go to the gym. There's a reason why I eat well. Is because I want to have a long and healthy life as long as possible. These guys have already planned out, like, yeah, when we're older, we're just not gonna be able to walk. I'm like, well, that's not a, I don't know. I just don't feel that's the way you should be thinking. You should be thinking about longevity rather than thinking of shortgevity. Is that a word? I don't know.
Well, it's the pharmaceutical model. They make billions of dollars on people over the age of 50 as they start taking medications, and they accumulate one medication after another, after another, after another, and no one researches how the medications interact. So lots of elders get those kinds of cross-reaction sensitivities. But the idea of a total lifespan, extending total lifespan, I don't know. I don't know if I can extend my life. I don't know. But I can extend the healthy lifespan.
Health quality, right?
Yeah, to be closer to my total. So the goal is you go to sleep one night and you don't wake up. That's okay.
Unless it's your 4-year-old ripping out your headphones. So I want to touch on wheat and gluten. What was your experience in wheat? Why did wheat come about? Why was the issue of wheat?
Yeah. No human has the enzymes to digest wheat down. If you think of protein like a pearl necklace, and the acid in your stomach undoes the clasp of the pearl necklace, now you have a string of pearls. And your digestive enzymes in the saliva and all the way down, they act as scissors to cut the pearl necklace smaller and smaller and smaller until you're down to each pearl of the pearl necklace. That's called an amino acid. And they go right through the walls of the intestines into the bloodstream, and they're the building blocks to make cells, make all cells. So that's what's supposed to happen is digestion breaks down the pearl necklace, absorption allows the pearls to get into the bloodstream, and then you build new cells. The problem with wheat is that no human has the enzymes to break them down into each pearl of the pearl necklace. No human. The best we can do is break it down into clumps of peptides or clumps of amino acids, clumps of pearls called peptides. And those clumps of pearls, okay, let me back up a little bit.
That's fine, yeah.
Humans have had agriculture for about 10,000 years. Before that, our ancestors were nomads. They followed the herds, looking for food. All of them. They didn't stay in one place. They followed the herds. Then agriculture came. But before agriculture and following the herds, the first thing and most important thing was to find food. So they'd find something. The first thing they do is they smell it, then they nibble at it, then they eat it. If there were bad bugs in the food that they couldn't identify by smelling or tasting, bad bugs that could kill you, we have sentries standing guard inside the first part of the small intestine. Think of the soldiers at Buckingham Palace with those big hats. They're just stand there. They don't do anything. They're dormant. Just like these soldiers in the intestines, they're dormant. They don't do anything, but don't mess with those guys. Do not mess with those guys. And in your gut, those immune soldiers are called toll-like receptors. And they're just watching everything that comes out of the stomach into the intestine. They're just watching for bugs. And if they see bugs, they immediately go into action. So they're looking for the vest, the amino acids, on the outside of the bug. And when they see that amino acid structure, kind of like a brick wall, where there's different kinds of bricks in different places, there's different amino acids. When they see that brick wall, those bricks, the vest, they know that that's a bug that's a threat. Two things happen right away. They activate leaky gut within 5 minutes. What does that mean? Well, the cells open up a little bit and water comes from the body into the intestines. Why? It washes out the bug with the poop. So it's a protective. Leaky gut's really good for you. Saves your life every day. Excessive leaky gut is not good for you, but leaky gut's good for you. So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing is that they activate NF-kappa B. So these sentries standing guard, they activate leaky gut and they activate NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B is the desk sergeant at the police station. You guys go patrol over in this neighborhood today. You guys, you go over there. You guys go over there. NF-kappa B is the major amplifier of inflammation in the body. So a bad bug has been recognized coming out of the stomach into the intestines, activates toll-like receptor to wash it out, and activates NF-kappa B to create inflammation to kill it. That happens within 5 minutes. Here's the problem. The sentry standing guard, the toll-like receptors, they're looking for the vest of the bad bacteria, the structure of the bad bacteria. I call them orange vests. The problem is that these poorly digested clumps of wheat, because no human can break it down completely, these poorly digested clumps of wheat have the same amino acid structure as the vests of the bad bacteria. So your immune system recognizes wheat, gluten, as a harmful component of a microorganism. This is what they're teaching at Harvard. And this happens in every human, every time. Every human, without exception.
Okay, well, then from what I've read, there used to be the old wheat and then there was the hybridized wheat. So you're saying it doesn't matter? Is that what you're saying? It doesn't matter? Sorry.
Wheats are just as toxic, in some studies, more toxic than the hybrid wheats. No human can digest wheat completely. Humans can only digest it into peptides that are misinterpreted as a harmful component of a microorganism. Every human, whether you feel it or not, it's a very common source of inflammation.
Then correct me if I'm wrong, because, in the past 15, 20 years, because I'm 34 now, I'd say in the past 10, 15 years, only recently I've seen in the supermarkets, there's a free from section, but that wasn't there before. So how come people are getting celiacs more so now, or were they getting it before and no one was doing anything about it?
No, it's a good question. It's a good question. There's two reasons. One, in the early 1950s, dwarf wheat was invented, which saved millions and millions of lives. And the guy who developed it won the Nobel Prize for it because it saved millions of lives. Dwarf wheat has a much higher concentration of gluten than the ancient wheats. So it's more toxic. It's more recognized as a harmful component of a bug. That's the first thing. The second thing is that all of the toxic chemicals that we're exposed to in our foods and in the air, they create an environment in the gut called dysbiosis. Not enough good guys, too many bad guys in the gut. And because of that inflamed environment of the gut, which makes you much more sensitive, it's kind of like if you wear a pair of shorts and you're playing with your kids and you run and you slide on the carpet and you get carpet burn on your knee.
Yeah.
You don't put pants on for a couple days unless you have to, because it hurts the knee. It hurts the skin. You got a carpet burn. That's leaky gut. So every time you eat, when there's a glob of food going through, you irritate it a little bit more.
What do you say to people when they say, "Oh, we'll just get fermented wheat instead"?
Show me the study. There's no science to that. There's absolutely no science. There was only one sourdough, only one study that I've ever seen where there was no activation of the immune system. Now, there are some studies that show reduced activation, but you still activate the immune system. You still create the inflammation. But one study, zero. And I was really excited by it. But it required 7 different strains of Lactobacillus san franciscus as the starter culture for the sourdough bread. 7 different strains, and it broke down all those clumps of wheat completely, which is really great. It's really great. But it's not commercially viable to make bread that way, and no one has come up with a starter culture for the 7 different strains of Lactobacillus san franciscus. It would be a great project, and I think it would be a money-making project if it was done properly, because the world really wants to eat wheat. I miss my croissants.
Oh, mate, I miss my pizzas. Oh, my
Yeah.
God. I went to, I had a work dinner and we went to a pizza place and I was like, well, just give me the gluten-free pizza. Oh, it's like, look at everyone else's pizza. Big, lots of cheese on top, and I'm dairy-free as well. So, and they've given me the gluten-free one and the dairy-free one. And it's like, at least make an effort with the pizza you're giving me, because it's so small and the amount of fake cheese that they put on top was like minimal. I'm thinking it's double the price. And
Yeah.
and everyone's looking at it, everyone was like, oh, so how is it? I was like, it's as shit as it looks.
Right. Tastes like cardboard. Right.
Yeah. So what kind of foods do you miss then? You said croissants. I miss
Croissants. Yeah. My wife, thank God, she's an excellent baker, and she makes cakes and muffins. And she made new muffins, a new recipe today that was almond flour and walnuts. And she said I had more walnuts than it called for. And the result was they were light, fluffy cupcakes. They were really good. They were really good. Or muffins. They were muffins. They were really good.
The best.
She makes a great pizza, and so it doesn't have to be cardboard anymore.
No, I make when I make it, I get chickpea flour, and I make that as a base, and then I think the only hard bit is what do you replace the cheese with.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you replace the cheese with?
I don't know. She does it. I don't know. I don't pay attention.
It's interesting because over the past 3-4 weeks, I've changed my daughter's lunchbox altogether, going gluten-free and dairy-free at the moment. It's more of a process, what you mentioned, 1 hour per week kind of thing. Taking everything away from a child, I feel like is a bit of a challenge, and it can be a bit tough.
Yeah, you're trying something, but it's a shot in the dark. You really don't know. And the rule of thumb in functional medicine is test, don't guess. And now the tests have come to Great Britain, and because the tests have been so inaccurate for so long, it's been a problem. It's really been a problem. But now there are very, very accurate tests. They came to the U.S. in 2016, but now they're coming to Europe. They're here actually, they're extremely accurate, and you can just do a finger prick. And you can do a finger prick and do the wheat zoomer and the dairy zoomer, and you can find out exactly what your child is sensitive to. The lectin zoomer, the egg zoomer, the peanut zoomer, there's a bunch of them. You go to my website, thedr.com, thedoctor.com, and just go to tests, and you can see the tests are there. And they're extremely accurate. It's about time, because the technology of most of the lab tests in Europe today, the technology is from the 1980s. They're 40, 50 years old. They're okay tests, but they're wrong 2 or 3 out of 10 times. Completely wrong. These are not wrong. They're 97 to 100%.
Amazing
technology.
Yeah, and that's something I want to do for my daughters as well.
Yeah, exactly. And just do the finger prick, wheat zoomer and dairy zoomer, and then you'll know. Does she have a sensitivity to this food or not?
Okay, cool. What do you think about DNA testing then? Because there's quite a few tests out there now. There's DNA testing where it's like it's meant to tell you about the person all in one go. Or is that the same thing that you're talking about?
No, not at all. About 30% of the diseases are caused by genetics. About like cystic fibrosis, if you've got the gene, don't know. But 70% of disease, you may have the gene, but that doesn't mean you get the disease. You may have the ApoE4 gene for Alzheimer's, or the BRCA1 gene or BRCA2 for breast cancer. It doesn't mean you're getting Alzheimer's. It means you're vulnerable to Alzheimer's, vulnerable to breast cancer. So doing genetic testing is useful, but I refer to it as second-tier testing. You know, that the first tier, a good clinician, does test because they strongly suspect this is a major trigger of inflammation. Or if the history so warrants, sometimes genetic tests are really valuable to do, but you can't diagnose from a genetic test. All it says is that you've got a weak link in your chain. You know, you pull at a chain, it always breaks at the weakest link. Yeah. One end, middle, the other end, your heart, your brain, your liver, your breasts, wherever the weak link is. So it's useful to know what the weak links are, but it's more useful to know where the link's breaking. That's functional testing. So we start off people with functional testing, and if we don't get the results that we know we should be getting, then perhaps let's consider doing some genetic testing to see if you genetically just can't detox very well.
Interesting. Is there a DNA test for lipomas? Because I've got like 30 and just keep growing. I've got one everywhere, and it's like, what is going on? And I spoke to, naturally go to a doctor, and they said, oh, it's just generational. Okay, I don't want to accept that because there's mostly something going on.
Generational?
Yeah. And I went to America for a wedding in February, and my cousin was there who lives in London, and he was like, oh, you've got them too? I was like, yeah. And he showed me 3 on his leg, so he's got them as well. So I don't know if you know anything about lipomas or have you come across anything?
You know, I'm not a genetic expert, but it sounds like that's worth exploring.
Okay.
But if you have the gene, it doesn't mean you're getting lipomas.
That's right.
It means some way you're activating that gene. Where's the inflammation coming from that's activating that gene? If you were my patient, I would tell you to do the wheat zoomer, the dairy zoomer, the neural zoomer plus, the lectin zoomer, and the total tox burden. And you do those tests, and we'll find out what's pulling on the chain. You may have that weak link, but it's what's pulling on the chain. It's the inflammation that pulls on the chain that manifests at your genetic vulnerability.
You spoke about plants earlier and how the quality of air is causing inflammation as well, right?
Yeah.
So what is going on with the air situation in people's homes?
In most homes, the air quality is more toxic indoors than outdoors because of all of the, the fake wood that you have in your IKEA furniture. I shouldn't say company names, but
don't worry, I'll block it out if you want me to.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Or the flame retardant chemicals in the cushions
on our beds,
in your sofa, or on your beds, and in your
sleep improvement.
That's exactly right. If you're not using organic cotton or wool in your sleeping gear and in your sheets and blankets, you're inhaling these flame retardant chemical fumes every single day. Now, I've never heard of someone whose life was saved in a fire because they were sleeping under a blanket that was soaked in flame retardant chemicals. I've never heard of anyone whose life was saved. Maybe there is, but I've not heard of it. But it's a great way for the chemical industry to keep making billions of dollars, and we inhale and you can't wash them out. These chemicals stay and they outgas. Well, there's no evidence that the amount of chemicals that outgas out of sheets are toxic to humans. That's true. There is not. But all of this accumulates in your body over a lifetime. So what do? You do not do spring cleaning. When I came out in practice, we used to emphasize spring cleaning, detox once a week, every spring, but not anymore. Detox needs to become a part of everyday life. You need to stay well hydrated to flush out things. You need to be moving, exercise. I mean, my books are all about, what are the steps? There's 36 to-dos in You Can Fix Your Brain. 36 different things to do. Order glass storage containers, not toxic cosmetics, houseplants, which houseplants absorb toxins, check the air for mold, all those kinds of things. And if you allocate 1 hour a week to learning about all of this, 6 months, your body, your metabolism has changed dramatically.
For those who do not know, what is autoimmunity?
Good. Autoimmunity is when your immune system is attacking your own tissue and in excess amounts. Now, if you do a blood test for your thyroid autoimmunity, for example, the range for the antibodies is 0 to 34, 0 to 36, depends on the lab. That's normal. Well, why is it normal to have any antibodies to our own tissue? It's because, Mrs. Patient, you have an entire new body every few years, entirely new body. Every cell in your body regenerates. How does that happen? How come I'm not so much bigger if I'm regenerating new cells? Well, it's because the immune system gets rid of the old and damaged cells to make room for new cells. That's called autophagy. And the antibodies take part in that process. So there's a normal range of thyroid antibodies in this example. But when you have elevated thyroid antibodies, you're killing off more cells than you're making. So it's not the antibodies that are the problem, it's the amount of antibodies. So when you have elevated antibodies to your joints, that's rheumatoid arthritis. We have elevated antibodies to the insulation around your nerves, that's multiple sclerosis. So the question is, why are the antibodies elevated? And that's everything we've just talked about. That's the inflammation equation, is that the immune system trying to protect you is attacking these chemicals, these compounds that look like the vest of your own tissue. So when you have too much BPA, the phthalates in your body, it loves to accumulate in the reproductive organs and in the thyroid. And so your immune system attacks your thyroid because there's a bunch of BPA there because you're drinking bottled water out of plastic containers that sat in the car. And the phthalates just come into the water. So you're drinking phthalate-loaded water, right?
Yeah.
Well, autoimmunity is not the problem. Excess autoimmunity is the problem. And for that, you have to identify where is the inflammation coming from that's triggering the immune system to make the extra antibodies.
Amazing, amazing. Do you have time for a quick fire round or do you have to go now?
I'll give you a couple minutes.
So, favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday?
Yeah.
My son's birthday.
Vegetable juice or smoothies?
Vegetable juice or smoothies.
Your thoughts on carnivore, keto, plant-based or vegan diets? What's your thoughts on them?
They all alternate the microbiome in a not positive way. As therapeutic diets for a period of time, they can be extremely valuable, but they're not a lifelong way of eating.
So what's the way you eat then? Is it just gluten-free and dairy-free and just how do you usually eat yourself? What's your diet like?
If you Google the Mediterranean gluten-free diet, you got a beautiful pyramid of how to do your food selections. And at the very bottom, meaning the one that's the most, is water. You've got to flush, you've got to detox. But as a lifestyle, the Mediterranean gluten-free diet is the one that we recommend. But for therapeutic targets for a certain length of time, the diets you've recommended can be very helpful.
Advice you would give to your younger self?
Be kind and be patient.
Book recommendations for autoimmunity. I'm guessing it's going to be this one.
Oh my gosh, yes, my books. That book won a National Book Award.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Like most of my advice I give is based on this book and it works. So something I definitely recommend as well. So scenario, you're on your deathbed and you've got one last meal to pick. What would you eat?
Oh my goodness.
No pressure. No pressure.
Risotto.
Nice. What are you most grateful for?
My wife, my son, and my children.
3 tips to improve autoimmunity.
Drink a third to a half ounce of water per pound body weight. Well, that means I'll be peeing all day. Well, that's the idea. you've got to detox. That's first. Do organic whenever you can, as often as you can, and work on what does it take to get for you to have good, high quality sleep so you wake up refreshed.
Brilliant. What does health mean to you?
I started my talks back in 1980 with Dorland Medical Dictionary's definition of health. It's word for word, optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. I'd wager to say most people are not healthy when you look at the definition of the word health. Optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease.
Dr. O'Brien, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you taking your time in Italy. When did you move in recently, or?
We moved in May.
Ah, okay. And yeah, I'm guessing you're loving it.
Yes.
Ah, brilliant, brilliant. Where can everyone find you? And are you doing any conferences in the UK anytime soon? Because I'd love to come in.
Yeah. What's the conference? The Integrated Professional Medicine Conference in June. I'll be in London.
Okay, London.
Yeah. What else did you ask?
Where can everyone find you to contact you to find
thank you.
information?
The best thing, I think, is theinflammationequation.com. That will change your life. Our website is thedr.com. Thedoctor.com, just don't spell the word doctor out. Thedr.com. But the inflammation equation, it's all free, and it's very thought-provoking. You go, wow, that makes sense. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. So you'll get a lot of guidance there.
It's amazing. Dr. O'Brien, again, thank you so much. I can't wait to post this up. And yeah, good luck with everything that you do. And hopefully I shall see you in June in London.
Well, thank you so much. You know, the work that you're doing is so critically important, Omar. Don't try to convince people. If they're not interested, move on. Move on. Focus on those that want to hear what you have to say. And there are millions that need to hear what you have to say. Millions. And, you know, those that aren't ready, they're not ready. And don't allocate your precious energy to those people. If you are allocating to try to convince them or bring them on, then you have to review the pathology of what's going on inside of you. Why do you have to do that? So you find a therapist, or you do some inner exploration on that.
That's amazing advice. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good day. Take care.
Really good to be with you.
Likewise. Take care. Bye-bye.